Wednesday, July the 26th. Lake level is about 918 and a half. It's come down about 1.5 feet since last week. The way it's going down, and without any big rain coming in, should be about normal next week. Water temperature is really up there. It's 88, almost 89 degrees surface temperature first thing in the morning. So, water's really heated up. And I'm starting to find some fish out there grouped up a little bit deeper. And I think once the water flow, once they get the lake down to normal, and if they slow the generation down, it's going to help set that thermocline up, which will basically should get the fish grouped up, them deeper fish. The bad thing about the water dropping, it's still got another couple feet in the bushes, but by next week, if it continues to drop like it is, there won't be too much shallow stuff to flip. The good thing is right now, this next week or so, what fish are still left in the bushes should be right out at the last bushes at the edge. I haven't been up in the river arms or been doing any flipping the last 3 or 4 days. I've mainly been on the main lake, and I actually got into a pretty good group of fish today around the Kimbling City area, and those fish were mainly caught on a drop shot, and they were anywhere from 25 to 30 feet deep, just right on the bottom or right off the bottom. And I'd said in my previous reports that I was having trouble finding where them fish that were 18 to 20 feet, where they'd moved to. Well, with the water temperature getting hotter, lake level getting down lower, they're starting to pull out there and they're starting to group up. Now, I didn't really find them on my electronics until I started catching them, but I was just fishing a lot of main lake points that usually have fish on it, and it seemed like once we caught one, a lot of times we'd double up, we'd get back-to-back bites. And a lot of the baits I was throwing out there was just, drop shot worm, and I had a young boy, and I actually had him on with some night crawlers, but they'll bite a 4-inch worm pretty good. I'm using some greens, some pinks, like chompers, brown purple lamb will work. But something I also caught several fish on was it's kind of like a little minnow I was drop shotting. Zoom makes a little miniature fluke which will do the same thing, and I think Demiki makes a bait similar to this. But I seem to catch several on a little shad looking bait. The bait are out there, a lot of shad out there this morning, about 25 feet of water, and that's where we seem to catch most of the fish, was underneath them shad. Another bite that's still been pretty consistent is football jig, and it hadn't changed very much as far as the depth. It still seems like 15 feet to some of them as deep as 25 feet. And I'm throwing several different baits, but like a green pumpkin purple or a green pumpkin orange football jig with, I've got a Strike King baby rage craw for trailer, a Zoom speed craw will work, a Chomper's twin tail, anything with legs on it, got a little bit of action. And I'm actually going, as the water gets hot like this, I'm actually going with a lot bigger baits. Another bait I'm throwing in the same place is a Zoom Magnum trick worm, about a 7-inch worm. It's real fat, and I'm throwing it on a football shaky head, either a 1/2 ounce to 5/8 ounce. Another worm I'll throw on the same setup is a Zoom Mag Finesse worm. It's probably about a 4.5 or 5, but it's real thick, and I'll throw it on the same thing, a 1/2 ounce, 5/8 ounce shaky head. But what's good about this big shaky head is you can use just about any bait you want. Another bait I've been using some, especially if I'm up in the river arms where the water's a little more stained, is a Zoom brush hog. You can use a baby brush hog or a full brush hog. I mean, it's kind of unlimited to what you can throw. You can throw a 9-inch or a 10-inch worm on this same rig. And it seems like when the water gets real warm like this, then fish are eating bigger baits, and especially if they're, in the brush piles. And I did get into quite a bit of, I had a couple days this week we got into quite a little bit of topwater action, which we haven't seen hardly at all, this post-spawn. But found 2 areas that the fish were coming up for about an hour and a half every morning. They were in the center of a creek, and they were coming up out of deep timber, and they were mixed, kind of smallmouths, Kentuckys, and largemouths. We were catching some on a whopper plopper, a few on little spooks, but it seemed like the majority of the fish we caught was on a ½ ounce and 5/8 ounce Dixie Jet flutter spoon. Even when the fish was surfacing, they wouldn't stay up too long, but they would usually give away their location where they was at, and you could take and throw a spoon out there and just let it count down to about 5 to 10 and work it back to the boat. It seemed like when the topwater action stopped, you could get over the top of them with a drop shot or like a ½ ounce War Eagle spoon and just vertical jig them. They were about 20 to 25 feet deep. And, you know, like I say, up until this past week, so I haven't seen a whole lot of topwater that's been consistent. But I've got 2 or 3 areas where they've kind of consistently been coming up. So if you've got spots where normally the fish school early in the morning, it'd be a good time to try it, because I'm seeing a little bit more of that, you know, around the lake in different areas. But it's been pretty hot out there. So all I can say is, you know, stay hydrated, don't get dehydrated. Drink lots of water. And the boat traffic, recreation traffic hasn't been bad at all, especially during the week. It's been pretty quiet. The river arms, I've actually done a little floating this past week way up in the James River on kayaks, and it's just awesome to be up there this time of year. You know, water's nice and cool. Got it to yourself, and you catch 40, 50 fish floating, but a lot of little smallmouths, but it's a lot of fun. So until next week, good luck, good fishing.